Hello and welcome back to another build guide for team composition in Warhammer 40k Chaos Gate. My name is Syken and today we're continuing with yet another team comp that I wanted to share with you. It is one that is a little bit, gear dependent, but one that nevertheless is amazing to play. And if you liked the other one so far, then you will fall in love with that as well. I call it the MEATBALL composition. The idea of it is to simply out-tank anything that the game is throwing at you, and with that waddle down the enemies eventually. Now, tanks have been a good, stable meta in the original release. Unfortunately, since the game has changed and a few things are problematic for tanks. Number one, there is a specific warp event that will directly bypass armor, which is a problem. It is definitely a problem because all of a sudden you cannot tank. The way that we're going to go about that is we're going to reduce warp as much as possible, just so that we're not running into it. Secondly, the game introduced a lot of just shredding mechanics from the enemies, frag grenades and so on and so forth, but the game forgot that the players can still outsmart it. So let's start with the stratagems. We are going to use search prevention as the stratagem here. And we are actually going to use search prevention 1 and 2 so that we're never dealing really with any search. We're going to just push willpower as much as we can. If needed, this here is available. And then Tides of Shadow is fine, but I think we are even a little bit better off with kind of mass purification in this case, because it is a slight heal and an overall purify, just in case if something goes wrong. This team is relatively independent of the stratagems. I simply just don't want to roll the dice and wait 3 rounds until the armor penetration warp event is going to go away. Let's take a look at what each of these guys is doing. So the idea of this team is to use the return fire mechanic. Yes, you heard it correctly, the return fire mechanic, as well as the shielding pushback mechanic, and then otherwise make ourselves as invulnerable as possible. And that is where the dependency on gear will be coming in. We are running Paladin and Chaplain, Librarian and Purifier for that. The Librarian and the Purifier are the ones with return fire. And as you can already see, all 4 of them are having staves in hand. And staves are important because that's what the developers have overlooked. Your normal armor can be shredded, but Aegis Shield never can be shredded. Aegis Shield always will reapply. So if you can make sure that your guys are having Aegis Shields and that the Aegis Shields are bueno, then you will be in a fantastic position. On top of that, we're starting with the rolls. So the Chaplain here is in it to provide the phase discipline, litany of phase, if you want to just get more armor. But I personally like the litany that gives you resistances, since resistances are difficult to come by. And 30 resistances for everyone is nothing to scoff at. So basically, when we're playing tanks, there are 2 things that we need to consider. We need a lot of armor for temporary hits, and we need a lot of resistance so that afflictions don't stick. And in a perfect world, everybody is running around with 100 resist and with enough armor, and you can get close to that and still deal very respectable damage. So let's go through each and everyone individually. Paladin will be the frontliner, will use his shield in order to stand at the forefront and push back whoever is coming. The only skills that you really need for that is potentially the shielding here, the defend position, and then I personally like to run the Fury Discipline, simply because you can then use that as pushback, and AoE damage is never wrong. I said, as I mentioned, we want to still have a respectable damage, and please believe me, 12 hit point damage as well as just massive pushback is very much respectable. So that'll be him. In terms of the loadout that we're running, you can see that we have 100% resistances off the bat. That is easy with a Paladin, but I still felt it's a good enough idea. And our melee weapon is a specific one. We're using the Rod of the Ancients here, which has 100% Aegis Shield in itself. Since the Paladin doesn't have a lot of other auto abilities, I figured focus isn't as important on him, hence I gave him that. The Aegis Shield on top will have +2 armor, so his base 6 armor will be coming in with a nutty +7 +8 armor on top of it, just to make it a little better. Speaking about which, I just realized one more stratagem that might be of interest in that particular build. Instead of just going for willpower, we can also go high sanctuary just for more armor. Sure, why not? As for the chaplain, we are coming in at 65 resistances, mainly coming from the Covenant of the Ages, and together with his litany he will be at 95 resistance, which I figured close enough, it's fine. We do have the typical 2 passive items, the Sanctic Shard for additional focus, bringing us to 50 focus, and the Urchin of the Warding tier 3, kind of adding to the armor so that we are reaching that 65% resistance. In terms of his loadout, as a ranged weapon, I'm running Rune's Witness, and you will see kind of a pattern here. A lot of the weapons that I'm running are having auto fire plus X damage, so we're just really going to do an Overwatch focused build for fun. You can use whatever else you want. As a melee weapon, no surprise, we're using a warding staff, a little bit willpower, 50% Aegis, with a 50 focus, that's 100%, giving him 11 armor plus a whooping 6, so he's coming in at 17 armor, standing very strong as a tank there. Very, very happy with what I'm seeing here. By just doing that comparison, I figured I'll just go for Will of the Aegis on the Paladin, dropping the resistances to 70%, but with a 30% litany that's still 100%, and we're just upgrading the armor from 6 to 9, so he will be at 15 armor as well, meaning that these two here will be absolute tanks. If you add the stratagem of 3 armor on top of it, we're already at 18 armor. And it doesn't stop there, which is where the Librarian comes into play. The only thing that you really need here is this section, Sanctuary. Everything else is optionally. Oh yeah, and of course the Return Fire plus the Psybolt. So the whole left-hand side, so to speak. This guy is super strong because he does have the option for an Aegis Shield, for an advanced Aegis Shield that would come in at whooping 2, 4, 6, 7, 9 armor, and he does have a 25% chance to automatically get Aegis Shield at the end of the turn. Keep that in mind. This is an important ability because it allows him to use a staff that doesn't have the auto Aegis, and with high enough focus, all of his abilities will trigger. That means Price of Power, teleportation boost, Aegis reaction, Return Fire will happen. So all of that will trigger just because we have kept focus very high. Which kind of brings us to the loadout. As an armor, we are running one that allows an extra passive slot that puts in the 50% focus, bringing him overall to 75% focus. He has 50% resistance and potentially the lowest resistance person in the team, but with a 30% litany, we're still at 80%. So almost everything will simply be ignored by him. As a ranged weapon, we're going with a very same concept. We want something that deals a lot of damage because of the return fire, and 7 points is great. If you add the Psybolt on top of it, it's 9. If you add his own Psybolt, we're already at 12. and then you can additionally crit with that as well. So really strong ranged damage from him. The melee weapon is one where there is a bit of an exception. Like I said, it's the only staff that does not have an auto Aegis, but it does have +2 Aegis shield, and that is why it is so great, because he will auto Aegis himself and get more Aegis. So currently he's coming in at 9 points of Aegis, getting him to 13 armor with all of that. On top of that is the cherry on the top of the cake. We do have Sanctuary, which gives 5 armor to everyone. So that means the 18 armor that we were talking about is now 22, 23 armor. And you can already see where this is going. Finally, the Purgator really needs return fire mainly. Which is here in the support fire. We're going to see whether or not support fire procs on a return fire. We just want a lot of ammunition to go for it, and everything else is a bonus. The grenades are a bonus, the arcane weapons are a bonus, and the astral aim is a bonus as well. Given that we need to have enough defense here as well, I ran with a armor that is ultra tanky for a normal power armor. Titan's Aegis, 3 armor, extra War Gear slot, Chef Kiss, very good armor. And as the 2 passive items, we're going for resistances. The staff also has resistance, so we're resist capped. And with a Sanctic Shard, 50% extra trigger means the return fire will always trigger, as well as all of the other passive abilities, and the Purgator has quite a few. Grenade is anyone's take. I just used Crazing Grenade as a little bit more of crowd control, and as the actual weapon, since the Purgator is supposed to deal damage, we have used another Overwatch ability weapon, which comes in at 8 points of damage in an Overwatch with a reasonable amount of ammunition, 6 overall with their traits. So you can see where this is going. This is kind of a real strong meatball composition, but let's take a look and see how it plays out. Alright, we're jumping right into an engagement with the enemies, and I'll actually slow it down a little bit. So you can see 28 armor on the front line, 21, 16, and even 11 back there. Let's see what the enemies are actually going to do against this meatball of a composition. The idea of it is that nothing should be able to really touch us. Will we be right, or will they do have an idea of dealing with us? There's the first test. Affliction very much resisted. There's the return fire.
Another falls to the Knights of Titan.
Alright, that was round number 1, but don't take my word for it. Let's take a look if we still can do it over and over again. Good, we engaged with another pack, this time quite high hit point Nurgle's minions. And as you can see, 23 armor right there, 18 on the other ones. Let's see just how much damage we're going to take and what we're going to dish out in return.
Overwatch. Shot confirmed.
Steam is particularly good for holding points, of course, as it is ultra tanky. Good. Solid resistance. Triggers a return fire, of course. Good, let's see a bit of the Overwatch damage. Curious, that guy just goes down. They go down. Almost down. Can't really do much against the draining other than wearing armors that are preventing drain. But I think we can appreciate that for a entirely passive team composition, this was ultra good. I mean, we had 40 hit points on their leader and around 10 to 15 hit points on every single one of them. And we're left with... Alright, the engagement didn't really play out as interestingly as I wanted, so I will instead show you something else. We've seen a lot of their Overwatch traps, but how does this team actually work in a setting where we are engaging? So we do have a situation where we are running into a heavily fortified team. So how would that work as a starter? And the answer is quite simple. There is a lot of aggression potential or aggressive potential in this team. For starters, Fury of the Ancients will allow us to knock back and deal a lot of damage. Just look at the damage that we would be dealing here. In combination with our Sanctified Kill Zone, we are being able to weaken the enemy whenever possible, so you get a lot of vulnerability right there, setting them perfectly up. If you combine it with a nice grenade, you are already seeing the AoE damage that we can put out, but that's not even all of it. This is just kind of the mere beginning, and you can see that the little Overwatch shot will do absolutely nothing against. As a matter of fact, Fury of the Ancients completely clears out the team. Just look at that aggression potential, and we have used like what, a consumable and 3 AP at that point. So really what that boils down to is we have enough options left over to then just deal very vulnerable damage. So we're looking at 8 points and with Psyball even 10 points per shot, giving our Librarian the necessary willpower and lasting power to essentially taxi everybody around whenever needed. So I hope that that showcased just an overall very, very potent team. I'll showcase again, even kind of in a normal situation. If you are getting plagued at some point with affliction, just use the purification and heal yourself up. We're completely full at this point. If we don't like surges, then there you go. That's how we get rid of them. And you could even reduce the ward for the next few rounds. We are still under the effect of Sanctuary. The additional armor works well. And we can indeed do this here. Just the end of the round, when everybody is going into their Aegis shield, that just showcases how much defense we're having. Around 20 armor for all of them, and even in light armor we're rocking 15. So that's really it. That's the meatball combination. High resistance, high armor, a lot of Overwatch, and with Fury of the Ancients, a couple of grenades and strong bolters, you are not shabby on the damage department as well. The comp actually plays relatively straightforward, and in my perspective is one of the most beginner friendly comps, because you can just run in even on legendary difficulty, and you'll see just how little of the damage sticks. If you're starting out with less gear, if you're not in the mid or late game, I would potentially suggest to drop a bit more of the resistances and instead get medical healing skulls. Another option here is to just ignore the surge prevention and instead go for more resistances that way. Alright, of course, shortly interrupted before I was about to close down the guide. So, what I was about to say is, if you're struggling at the beginning, just use stratagems that will help you a little bit more. Immunize yourself with a stratagem via resistance, and then potentially use the healing stratagem as well. High Sanctuary is nice, but with all of the armor that you're already having, the 3 armor really doesn't make that much of a difference if you do have 20 armor to play with. And as you can see, even after going through 4 skirmishes at this point and taking quite a few hits, being afflicted and so on and so forth, we're still not having taken any damage. Nothing stuck to us, so that's pretty damn good. Thanks a lot for watching. I need to go to my apparently responsibilities as well. Have a great day, and let me know if you like the meatball composition. Bye bye.